So money is one of those things we all like to pretend doesn't matter when it comes to love. We tell ourselves it's about, chemistry and kindness and finding someone who makes us laugh. But then someone orders the most expensive thing in the menu, suggests that we split the bill to the cent, and suddenly money is very much in the room. So how much should money matter in a relationship? Well, I'm Jennifer Zamparelli, and today I'm joined by matchmaker Mairead Loughman for an honest conversation about money, dating and relationships. But before all that, let's have a quick chat with Darren O'Connor on the topic of money.
Must be funny.
Money, money. Do you want a rich lad?
Absolutely.
Yeah, see, I knew you'd say that.
100%. And I've kind of decided...
But it might make you happy.
Yeah, but have you ever seen someone unhappy on a speedboat, Jen?
This is very true. Have you dated rich men?
Not that I know of, unless they were pretending. No, but my sister actually, I have a specific story in mind that comes to mind. My sister has this cafe, and this man came in, and he was older, I would say, and you could just tell by him that he had money, and he was in cycling gear, and something just came over me. He was really rude. And I got really annoyed, and I said to my sister, I was like, can you believe that's what I'm going to end up with? And she was like, what? And I just was like, I've accepted that I'm going to be marrying for
Not
money.
Not a cyclist. No.
But he had the look. His hair was real voluminous, and he smelled nice.
Like
you could
money.
just tell, He had a smell of money off him. I could sniff it out of any. But yeah, I just was like, that's the way it is now. And I'm like, I've accepted that.
It's not the way it is. It's not. So on dates, when you're dating, what is the etiquette, or what is a big turn off? When on a first date, you're on a first date, because I haven't been dating in 20 years, are you automatically splitting the bill?
Yeah, I would always, you see, they have to nearly jump at it, because I will just have it out. I can't cope with the awkwardness. I will have the card out before the man is before we even go into the place, I'm ready to pay. So I love, everybody wants to be treated like a princess. I would love on the first
date. Or
date.
A prince, or whatever you identify as.
Exactly. Prince.
Everyone likes to be treated, full stop. Everybody likes that gesture of somebody going out of the way to give you a little treat.
Yeah, and I love to treat as well. So I think it's just that kind of give and take. But at the same time, it makes me uncomfortable too. So
it can breed resentment. I mean, I'm a treater. I love to spend money on people. I'm always at it. But if you do it too much and then it becomes a habit, then you can get a little bit... They never have their hands in their pockets there.
Exactly. Yeah, and that'd be a bit of an ick for me.
And that's bad as well.
Yeah, that's true. But I think I don't think I'd be able for it if I go over and above for people, and it's not. Is that people pleasing thing again? That it's not that I expect it back, but I'd never do something with the intention of it being reciprocated.
If a guy or if a person you're dating, if they pay for the meal, do you automatically think, oh God, I'm going to have to sleep with him now?
That's it.
Yeah.
It's...
they've just spent €200.
Yeah, they're...
Maybe. Go on then. No, that's called a different thing. But do you feel that's a sign, clear sign that they like you? Or how do you feel?
I don't know. I feel... I don't know how people... I would always feel like if someone is to... pay for something, I would feel like I owe them something, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Even a drink, anything.
Yeah, and that's that kind of fine line. But that's my problem as well, that it's they say actually with men, there's some part of that me Tarzan, you Jane, part of their brain that lights up. They want to treat you. And when you don't give them a chance to do that, it's some kind of Neanderthal primal part of their brain that they don't
You
like
keep
it.
telling yourself that when they're whipping out the card. You keep telling. I would love to know if any bloke is listening to this in a car going, she is full of shite. She just split the bloody bill. Woman, just split it. I think on a first date, it should be split because you don't know each other. You know what I mean? And that, that's just a decent thing to do.
Yeah.
And then after that, if he wants to treat you, because he's gotten to know you, or you want to treat him or whatever, then you can offer to pay then. Is that a good rule of thumb?
That's a great rule. I feel like if you're into them, I would never let them pay if I wasn't into them. Do you know that? Like,
interesting.
Yeah. So if I know that there's nothing here, I'll be like, absolutely no way, we're splitting it. Whereas if there's the possibility of a second date, you know, the next time I'd pay. You know, and if they're not into me, that's their problem.
Yeah.
Do you know?
See, it's hard to navigate, isn't it? Because everybody has different rules and in their head what they want and what they think is okay. And we're going to have to ask the expert.
It's probably a good idea.
Brace yourself. Before things heat up, a little love for our sponsor, Kildare Village. We're all for sparks flying when the curtains are closed. But sure, look, it's no harm to take yourself out for a bit of excitement too. With over 100 boutiques, including 60 you won't find anywhere else in Ireland, and 20 new brands to tempt you, a visit to Kildare Village is shopping that's so Irish. And if that wasn't enough, here's something special. We are giving five lucky listeners the chance to each win a pair of tickets to an exclusive live recording of Just Between Us with me, Jennifer Zamparelli, in the beautiful surroundings of Kildare Village. So you can bring your favourite plus one along for stylish night out. Head to independent.ie for your chance to enter, and good luck. Mairead, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Your lovely pink jacket is matching my pink wall.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Tell me. Does money actually matter when you're dating, or do we just pretend it doesn't?
We pretend it doesn't, but yes, it does. So that's basically both of them. Yeah. It does matter. Of course it matters. Like, if you think of one of the first questions you're going to ask someone is, what do you do for a living? And it's not because you're interested that they're a brain surgeon or they're a Formula 1 driver. You're trying to figure out how much money they earn. That's why most people ask you what you do for a living. So they're absolutely dumbfounded when I say I'm a matchmaker, because nobody can figure out what sort of money she earns. Yeah. But when it comes to love, absolutely it does.
It's a desperate question. I hate it. It's I kind of resent when people ask me that.
Yeah. Well, they should know. They shouldn't have to ask you that, Jen.
Well, I know, but if I'm in a foreign country...
I understand. No, I understand.
I do find Americans say it a lot more than other people.
They're trying to position you in their head. How much respect they should give you, how much possibly you could earn, what's your lifestyle like. It's an unusual one. It really is. I'd say there's a whole society thing that we could look at, social thing that we could look at. Yeah.
Okay, so is it more of a question women ask men? Would you say, in your experience in the matchmaking world, like, do women say, well, what does he do? I.e., how much has he got?
Yeah, I would definitely say that women have a checklist, okay, more so than men. So when people come to me for matchmaking, definitely ladies are more focused on what he does for a living. But men, it's not as important. And very often the more successful a man is, or the more he's earning, the less likely he cares what you do for a living, because he is looking for a life partner, possibly a wife, possibly a mother to his kids. And it's not that it's not relevant, but it's just not in the highest of priorities. They tend to be a little bit more visual creatures.
Okay, so women tend to say, what does he do for a living? What else is on that checklist?
So height, obviously. So height, of course. Yeah, of course.
That's number 2.
I would say it kind of comes in pecking order. Okay, so when I'm matching people, like, obviously age is very important, and location. Okay. Obviously then
and women don't mind going older, and men don't mind going younger.
It depends.
Okay.
But there is a whole psychology around it. Women tend to date slightly older. Men tend to date slightly younger. But again, with dating, there is no rules. So, there is nothing set in stone, but I've definitely, having matched close to 12,000 people in 10 years, I have definitely seen patterns of what works, what doesn't work, and how you can reduce your probability of success by being closed off to certain things. So you could say, I'll only date someone between this age and this age. And, you're cutting off so many people, height-wise as well, depending on, some people say, I'll only date this height and this height. I personally have dated 6'4" assholes, and then my own fabulous fiance is 5'8.5", and I would marry him every day for the rest of my life.
Well, there we go. There we go. And situations can change. So don't be duped if the man has money. When I first met Lau, he drove a very nice car. He had a nice house. And he turned to me 6 weeks into our relationship and said he was going to sell it all and become a fucking actor. So...
Things
you can
change.
be duped.
Yes,
Things change very, very quickly.
And money is very fluid.
Absolutely. But why is financial stability so attractive?
I think when it comes to being a female especially, okay, like the most important decision you'll ever make in your life is who you decide to have a relationship with, who you decide to marry, and especially if you want to have children. So if you are a female and you're looking to meet a potential suitor to get married and have kids with, you need to know that somebody's going to be able to keep the house afloat while you keep this little tiny human alive, grow them, birth them, all of those different things. Hormones flying, your own career, of course, being on hold. If you decide to take maternity leave, maternity leave benefit then as well. In Ireland, most private sector companies do not pay maternity benefit. And so you're down to €280 a week. For some people that might come to me for matchmaking, they may have been on €1,000 a week, €1,500 a week. So it's a huge drop while the gentleman's income stays the same. Now, obviously, this is in a straight relationship. I also match same-sex couples, and that doesn't matter, but just for the purposes of this example,
Okay. Let's bring it right back. We're going first date. Yes. Who should pay?
I would say if a man very much likes a lady, I think it would be no harm for him to pay for the first date.
Very well put.
Yeah, I try and look, as I said, there is no rules, okay? But I do know what kind of works and what doesn't. And there is a little bit of tradition. People are a little bit old school. They do like a certain level of tradition when it comes to who pays for the first date. Realistically, I arrange all of my clients' dates. So in the most part, we're sending them for a coffee because they're completely blind dates. Now, they do know a lot about the person they're going on a date with, but it's not Tinder. We don't swap over photographs. Sorry. So, it's a coffee date. Like if you can't afford a coffee and you're like splitting the coffee, like let's face it, there's no real hope for the future.
What about same-sex relationships?
I would say whoever just takes the inclination.
Just someone.
Somebody pay. Just somebody pay. That's it. You don't need to, there doesn't need to be a big thing about it.
Like, it's kind of like a gesture of, isn't it? Or is it? Yeah. Is it a sign that you want to meet that person again? Or, that you're paying for them? Or it could be a sign that you want to get rid of them really quickly.
I think some people just put too much emphasis on it. Just like get up and pay for the day. Like if you're out with your friend, you're not going to be like, well, I paid for the coffee, less than a tenner. You're not going to be like that. But I would say if the date's going well, the chances are you're probably going to be getting a second coffee. You might decide to even go for dinner and continue it on for the evening. And so if they got the first coffee, I'd say get the second one, But
do you get people, like if they've been on a date and it didn't go well or whatever, and there's been a turn off, people mention with regards to money.
Yeah.
What are they?
Like I've had clients that, even very successful clients that would be very happy to pay for a first date and maybe even suggest quite an expensive restaurant for the second, third, fourth date, whatever it is. And then the other person just doesn't even ever offer. So say they've gone for a very nice dinner for the second or third date, and this has happened.
Okay.
And then it comes to going for a drink after the dinner and they just stand with their hands in their pocket and wait for them to do everything. And I just think it just shows a little bit of appreciation in both directions.
Yes.
I recently had a gentleman, though, he was mid-20s, and he said to me that he had paid for all 7 dates that they'd gone on. And in fact, she had said to me, and she said, it's actually making me feel a little bit uncomfortable because he insists on paying all of the time. And I thought that was nice that she was like, what's the etiquette around this? And so I just gave him a ring, how are you getting on? Like just casually and everything. And he was like, yeah, good and everything. And I said, who pays for the dates? And he said, I pay for all the dates. And I said, you don't have to pay for all the dates. Just, sometimes it might be nice for her to buy coffee or the drinks and everything like that. And he's like, oh, I'm glad you said that because I just was feeling under pressure to come up with
and
it.
And
I'm
now skint.
And I'm now skint, yeah. But he, like in fairness to him, he was trying to do his very best.
Good on him.
And that's the effort that a lot of people put into matchmaking when they come to me.
She was conscious about it. And
she was, yeah.
So you're saying the big ick or the problem is when people aren't conscious and don't care and it's just letting the other person to,
and it's
pay
the
for it.
energy of it,
Yeah.
Are you being kind to that person? Are you meeting them some way halfway or whatever, or are you just letting them do everything? And for some people, you know, they will always take advantage, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's energy, whether it's emotion. And then there's other people that do say, look, I actually really appreciate what you're doing. Can we balance it up a little bit? Because I'd like to give a little bit as well. It's based as well on love language. Some people, you know, do like to gift. Some people like to receive. Some people like to give, those sorts of things. But I think a little bit of a balance, especially at the beginning stages, start as you mean to go on.
So balance in the beginning. Be considerate. Don't expect the other person, because they initiated, to be paying for everything.
That's
and
it.
just be sound. Okay,
Absolutely.
we're in the relationship now. We're in it. It's all good.
Yeah.
When should couples start talking about money properly?
I think obviously at the beginning stages, you are kind of giving each other, I suppose you're learning who each other are. So you kind of figure out what type of job they have, where they live, what type of car they have, how many holidays they go on a year. So there's these kind of little subliminal messages as to how financially secure they are. I would say when it just organically comes up, I wouldn't be kind of orchestrating a conversation, but I most certainly would be having a serious conversation about money before you move in together, before you get engaged, before you get married, before you have a baby. You know, as soon as you start having these bigger plans. And like, I'd like to remind everybody, you can't scare someone away. So we all grew up with Cosmopolitan magazine. Don't tell them you want to get married someday. Don't tell them you want to have a baby. Whatever you do, don't mention finances. But like realistically, the older we get, and people are getting married a lot older, they are meeting their person a lot older. And so I would say, you know, if you feel like you need to have the conversation, so people show you who they are. And I would say, listen, don't ignore the red flags. So if you're kind of getting an inclination that maybe they have a gambling problem, maybe the conversation needs to come up a little bit sooner. Again, you might not get a straight answer, but at the same time, at least you tried. 80% of relationships that fail because of poor communication and whatever it relates to. So if you can't have a conversation about money or anything, basically, you know, that is a red flag in itself. So the bigger issue would probably be your communication. Like if you were intending spending your life with somebody, the road is long.
Yeah.
You are probably going to you're going to be buying at least one house together, if not 10. You're going to be figuring out where you live, how many kids you'll have. For a lot of people now, there's infertility issues because they are getting married and finding their person a lot later in life. You might have, you know, a death of a parent, all of those things. They're all communication. They're all important conversations. So I would definitely say money being one that you should be able to have a serious conversation about.
It shouldn't be a dirty word. You should be able to talk about it.
You should be able to, yeah.
Absolutely. You touched on gambling there, but just bringing it back a little bit.
Yeah.
What if they're just a spender? Like, can a saver and a spender work together?
I would hope so, because that's me and my partner.
All right.
But, and we get on very well. But, you know, I suppose spender and saver, you just... Look, sometimes it can work very well. I like to shop. I like my nice things. He doesn't like to go shopping very often. So it balances out. But very often I go shopping for him. So there's the balance.
Yeah.
But, you know, it can work. Now, what I would say, if you're having that conversation, you should be able to have the conversation about finances of what type of house you'd like to live in, what type of holidays. For some people, they're happy to go on their very, very, very budget holiday. For somebody else, they'd think at a minimum it should be a 5-star holiday. So having some level of compromise and being able to have that conversation and seeing what works for you both. So for some people, you might say, look, I'll do the budget holiday in March, but can we go somewhere really nice during the summer? You know, and finding what works for you. But if you are both deciding you're going to save up, buy your house, get on the property ladder together, and one of you is just absolutely squandering money on stuff that is not important, going out at the weekend, buying drinks for the whole pub, that for, you know, and you're after working really hard to scrimp and save, there is going to be an imbalance, there is going to be an argument, and there may not be a long-term for your relationship.
And you're going to have bumps in the road.
Yeah.
You're going to have bumps in the road. For example, myself and Lau, all I said was for my 40th, I want to go and do Paris. Yes. With money, because we're married now, we're working now.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he booked a hotel with no windows by a train station. There's bumps in the road.
Yes,
you know,
okay.
He was forgiven for that hotel with no windows or aircon beside the train station.
So we went to Chanel. No.
No. And these things can happen. But communication is very important. We talk about it a lot. But are money rows usually about money?
No, it's really linked to the emotion that's attached to it. It's to the respect that's attached to it. It's the expectation. It's all of the stuff that goes with it. So there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of money, but have money issues within the relationship. So again, it's how you respect it. It's the conversation you have. There has to be a little bit of discretionary spend, like even how you set up your finances and your accounts. I would say there should definitely be at least one household account with, all the bills, the groceries, everything come out of it. I would probably have a second medium to long term for your savings, for your holidays, those sorts of things. I would definitely have my own personal account, and I would definitely have him have his own personal account or multiple personal accounts, whatever it is that works for you. Can I also say on a side note, just for logistic purposes, can everybody please just set up a couple's Gmail account or a couple's email account? Because when I'm going on holiday spend, because I'm the booker of the holidays, because I'm the spender, I would say that as a result, then I have all the information in my email address.
Yeah.
So recently we set up a couple's email address, and I am telling you, I save at least an hour and a half a week on logistics and on admin, life and couples admin as a result.
That is a great tip.
All the information, all the school stuff. So now you don't have to be the default parent that the school contact for everything.
Yeah.
All the information's in one email address.
Genius.
Just saying.
That is genius. Okay, you're in the long-term relationship. Should everything be 50-50?
I don't think it should be 50-50, but I do think it should be fair.
Okay.
So not everybody earns the same amount of money. So for some people in relationship, again, as we were saying, especially if a lady goes on maternity leave, she might end it. So both will say might start on €100,000. Okay, now that's very generous for some people, but a lot of the clients that would come to me for matchmaking, they don't have many overheads. They have concentrated on their career. So say both of the couple come to me and have €100,000 in their salary is what I would say. What I would say is for some people, that's fine, and you can do 50-50. Somebody else might be on €25,000 a year and the other person might be on €100,000 a year, and that might work for them. Again, a conversation around who pays more and how it works within the dynamic. For somebody else, they might just cover the mortgage and the other person might put in a little bit more into the joint account. Whatever way it works for you. But again, once it's fair, you can't have somebody that's on a very low income expected to pay a huge mortgage and keep up the spending power of someone that's on €120,000. But again, as I said, it has to be fair.
And how does having children change the money conversation?
I think, again, if they're not able to have a conversation about money before having children, there's going to be much bigger issues down the road. But again, having a genuine conversation about how you're going to pay for creche once this baby comes along. Again, the financial implications of maternity leave. You have to remember as well, not only is your salary going to be reduced for the months that you're on maternity leave, your pension's also going to be reduced. And also the costs of buying all this stuff for a new baby, everything like that. Childcare, again, as I said, how many hours you can work. All the different things that can reduce your income.
Do you think, because life happens and things change. So your circumstances change, whether you're buying a house, you're having a kid or whatever. So should you have little sit-down meetings every now and again, little recaps?
I think you should be anyway for whatever it is in your relationship. So like organically, you should be sitting down on a daily, weekly basis and just organically having the conversations, hey, just letting you know school fees are due. Yeah. We're coming close to the end of the summer, kids back to school uniforms and what do we need to get and everything like that. And so it's not the full responsibility on one parent. Again, as well, if somebody is taking a bit of a step back from their career in order to raise the children, I think a very mature conversation needs to be had about what way the money is going to be balanced up going forward, but also the role within the house of everybody. So you can't be the person earning and having the big job and doing the commute on a daily basis. And then at the weekend, well, I had the kids all week, they're yours. But equally, you can't just say, well, you haven't been working all week. And so, you have to take the responsibility. So, and that could be from the male.
Very common.
It is. But again, preempting all of this and having the mature conversation and the communication, but also the respect within your relationship that you are not burdening it. Like one of the conversations myself and my partner had before we moved into our house was I just said to him, I never want to be in a relationship where someone is like, fuck her, I'll just leave the dishwasher to her or I'll just leave the bin to her, and I said, I never want to be in that relationship. That's why. And so we decided from day one we'd pay it forward. And so I have 2 step kids and they're always like, you're all the time like giving out. Now it's not giving out, but you're all the time giving out about, no, I'll help you so we can sit down faster. Now I know that is the ideal. And believe me, it took me long enough to find him. But I have had the other where the bin is never empty. The grass is never cut. Everything was left to the default person that's at home. And at the time I was trying to set up my business. So it wasn't like I was sitting at home all day. I was working 12, 13 hours a day trying to get my business going and matching and spreading love all over Ireland. So, being able to, if you're with the right person, balancing up the energy within the relationship, as well as the money, as well as the emotion and the respect.
That is a very good point to make. Very important to make. Do people's backgrounds shape how they think about money?
I would definitely say so. So if you have somebody that's coming from a household that hasn't done a lot of saving and they just spend everything they can. Like kids, if you give them 20 euro, they're like, what bit of plastic tat can I buy as quickly as possible? I'm like, if one more of those dumplings come into our house, how many dumplings can I buy with all of this money, I'm like, please just stop. So again, teaching them. And again, both my stepkids had their communion and their confirmation in this year. And my partner, also a qualified financial advisor, is all I'll say. So comes into a good house here. But he was like, we need to look at short-term, medium-term and long-term, savings for you. And I just actually thought it was great because they're like, oh my God, first of all, the money they got for their communion and confirmation.
Exactly.
But second of all, get yourself the good things. So like the bike or whatever it is. And then you have your bit of spending money, put some part aside for a little summer holiday during the year and everything. But it's just teaching them the value of money. And even sometimes giving them the odd chores like dusting the stairs or emptying the dishwasher and saying, like for some people they get paid 15 euros an hour and then other people get paid 100 euros an hour. So, just giving them value of like time versus money and all those sorts of things.
They don't teach them that in school. It has to be taught at home. It has to be.
I know, but it's a real parenting thing and it's even out and about. Okay, so you have your 50 euros in your handbag. Now, you don't have to spend it all. So, like, what do you really need? Another Sol de Janeiro spray? And, is there anything else you'd like to get? Or, like, the pennies haul or whatever it is based on ages. Mm-hmm. But, like, being able to teach them that. And it is important. And I would say even as well, showing them the value of, like, how much people earn or what type of jobs there are. Absolutely, I think it starts at home. And you can use days out as a learning experience, holidays. Now, don't be bombarding them. Like, nobody needs to be reminded of money constantly.
Yeah.
But I do think...
But they get an awful lot these days.
They do,
and the grannies and the aunties and the communions and all that.
And here's another 20 and here's another slip of
coming in all the time.
Yeah. And so I do think it does have an influence. If you as well are like... think some people have no interest in ever owning a house and it's kind of the European model that they're happy enough to rent. And then other people, they're like straight out of college and like, quick, I need to buy my house straight away. And you can even see that as well within the clients that I match. So a lot of teachers and public sector workers will straight away get their house because I suppose they get offered a mortgage easier than maybe somebody that's in the private sector. And so then the value on who has a house and who doesn't. So some people put a lot of importance when they come to me for matchmaking about, well, I actually have a house, so can you match me with someone else that has a house? Because I know the sacrifices I had to make to get there. But then again, on the back of that, there's all the psychology of men should not move into a woman's house. There's all these things.
I never heard that.
Yeah,
really?
So they recommend that men do not move into a female's house. So say the female owns a house and then it's the dynamic in the relationship. It's the balance within the control and the power within power dynamic.
That the men don't like.
The men don't like, but also sometimes the ladies don't like. But there is a different balance in it. So they say that she should move out and go to her, like basically you should both move into a new house and start afresh.
It sounds way complicated in heterosexual relationships when it comes to money.
It is
and navigating that than it is in a gay relationship.
Yeah. And also the dynamics then can change. So we would have seen a lot of this then during the crash. That's when I was a financial advisor at that time. And, the money dynamic, the power dynamic that happens when somebody loses their job and all of a sudden somebody else is the main breadwinner.
Yeah.
You also then have in some cases where, say, the man was historically earning more money, the lady is earning less, and then the pressure that's on her all of a sudden because she's like, oh my God, I don't want this pressure. This was not what I signed up for. Again, we would have seen it a lot during COVID and during lockdown. A lot of people would have been on very good salaries and then they were knocked down to their 350 euros per week. I would have seen some relationships that didn't last that and the power dynamic. So it's also being comfortable in yourself As a result, I would recommend that you would have between 3 and 6 months, and that is the guidelines, 3 to 6 months worth of savings. So whatever your earning capacity is worth of savings in a bank account. But I'm going to say the majority of people in Ireland probably don't have that. 90% of cars that are sold in Ireland at the moment are financed. So new cars, yes. So, what is people's importance on driving a new car and being seen to be driving a new car versus driving the car that they can afford and not paying the finance on it? If you look at all that.
We all need to sit down with a financial advisor and go through absolutely everything. And then some people are just really good with money. Like I have a friend, he's so good with money, and in his relationship, it's all spreadsheets. He knows exactly. And because they're in a tricky situation in a sense that she gave up work to be at home and he's working, he has a big job, but he has it all mapped out. But I think there has to be an element of planning.
Yeah.
There has to be, because you're in a partnership. Like it's not a business transaction, but you are in a partnership. And there's things to consider.
My fiance is the sort of person, he has his budget. He knows exactly how much he has to spend each month, each week, each weekend.
That's amazing.
Everything like that. He is like, when I met him first, I was like, what's that? And he's like, it's my budget. And I was like, do people do budgets? Now, I was a financial advisor for 7 years and I didn't even come across anybody that really did a budget. So I'm like, you are the exception of the rule, you know? But like that again, prioritises saving, prioritises making sure that everything, that's the provider nature in him.
But knowledge is power. And a lot of us don't even know what's in our bank account. So what are the biggest money red flags in dating, would you say?
I would say, definitely I would say if someone is gambling,
which is huge.
And any sort of addiction, Jen. Like it's not just gambling.
Yeah.
Any sort of addiction.
But gambling is a tricky one because it's very hard to spot.
It is very hard to spot. And of course, people that have addiction issues, they are kind of wizards at trying to hide it and everything. I would say if you are with somebody or you're starting to date someone with addiction issues, or if you have addiction issues yourself, I would say your priority would be to go and get help for that first of all. And that's just being the mature person about that. Second of all, I would say debt. Now, debt in itself is not bad. We would have seen a lot of people that, would be in debt for whatever reasons. They may decide to set up a business and it doesn't work out. And you have to, appreciate that they did go for it. For some people, again, they're in debt because their car, do they genuinely need that car? Are they in debt because they're trying to get ahead in life and taking a small calculated risk? Debt itself is not a problem, but not having a plan around your debt is a problem. And that's where, people can be silly about it. So I would say, sit down. If you do have debts at the moment, or if you are single, I would say prioritize clearing your debts. So what you would do is you'd get all your debts, list them. So if you have a credit card, you might have €1,000 on that one, 3,000 on this one, your car loan, and then your mortgage, whatever. I would say find your smallest debt, and I would literally throw money at that until it's paid off. Wipe it clean and then move to the next one, and just start the smallest and wipe them as quickly as you can. Again, things like paying off an extra mortgage payment or 2 a year towards your mortgage is going to wipe years off your mortgage just with interest rates. So just being savvy about it, educating yourself, just being even aware of your own finances. You don't need to be rewriting or out lecturing people on their finances, but just being aware of where you are, how much money you have to spend, what your interest rates are. Can you get a better interest rate? Get rid of your credit card. Like I haven't done a credit card in 20 something years. As far as I'm concerned, you should not be driving a car unless you can afford it. Now, for some people, again, their circumstances change, so they may have need to upgrade a car because of a pregnancy or something like that, or the family got bigger or something. But again, I would prioritise then trying to pay off that car loan and stuff as fast as possible. In a long-term relationship, should you know what the other person has? Like everything, complete transparency. I would say before you marry, you should, because you're tying into a contract with that person. You're equally then responsible for their debts or whatever that might be. I'm still waiting for my fiance to tell me that he's a multimillionaire and that I've passed the test and here we are, But what I would say is, you should be able to have the conversation. There shouldn't be any hidden gems, and especially if you're getting into something that is not in the positive light. Again, as well, I would never marry for money. I've seen it all. I would now, because I've done the love. Yeah, you've done the love. Yeah, you have the kids. I'm quite happy to have the kids. Joking. Why do you say that? Well, first of all, in Ireland, it's takes years to get out of a bad relationship. The first thing that will happen is if you break up with your spouse, is one, it could be amicable. But if it's not amicable, the first two things that people are going to use against you is your kids and money. That's the power trip. And if you are being financially abused before you can get your separation or divorced, you are still attached to that abuser for at least a minimum of 2 years. The laws really need to change in Ireland. In order to get divorced as well, if you have someone that's trying to drag their feet, it could be between 40 and 50,000 euro just for you. Same probably on their side as well, in order to get a divorce. So if somebody's trying to, drag their feet or trying to be a little bit bold in the background. So just, I would say, yes, be clear on how you are with money, be clear on the whole situation. And, before you get married, realise it is a contract. Like I'm all for love. I'm all for marriage, but with the right person.
How do you feel about, as my mother would call it, running away money?
I'm all for this. I absolutely think we all should have a little bit of a slush fund and everything. Yeah. You have your current account, and if you set up your accounts properly, this is not going to be an issue. So you have, as I said, your family accounts, his and hers accounts, and they're separate, and then whatever you want to do with it. I would say definitely having a little bit of a fund put together to buy the nice things and to be able to not have to justify that pair of shoes or that bag of makeup that you got in Brent Thomas after costing you hundreds of euros or whatever. What about it? Okay, we all need to have a little bit of, especially if you're working and you're pushing yourself a little bit harder. But what I would say is if you feel like it's a genuine running away fund, or if you're in a relationship that's unsafe or not very healthy, I would say prioritise it, and I would keep it a secret if that's the case. Just for your own safety. If you have money, you're going to make very different decisions.
That's right.
If you even have 5,000 euro, you're in a safer place than having zero. You're going to be able to leave a situation and maybe book yourself, kids into a hotel. And it's not just that; it's just having the frame of mind, the mindset, and the freedom,
the security, emotional security. That's a very good point. You will make completely different decisions if you have a bit of security.
The people that are single that are listening to this, okay. As I said, get your own finances in order. But again, the decisions you make and the partner you decide to be with will be completely different if you have money versus if you don't. If you have 5, even 10,000 euro there, and you can meet your rent every month or your mortgage every month, and you can do your nice things, you're not going to be looking for someone to save you. You're not just going to be looking for someone that's going to pay for your lifestyle. So if you are single there at the moment, I would say just take a step back for a month or two, build up that little nest egg. We have pockets in Revolut, all those sorts of things. Just put a little nest egg aside and just save your brain.
Okay.
Save the stress.
Last question. Here we go. We've covered a lot of ground here. Yeah. You've done amazing. What simple advice would you just give to listeners about relationships and money?
Well, first of all, as I said, the biggest thing is that you only marry someone that you're in love with. And I would say, that they're your best friend.
Okay.
I know, I'm well-trained matchmaker. What do you expect? The biggest, I would say, is people teach you who they are. And so listen to them. Don't start collecting red flags. Trust your gut. You have to as well, though, have the nice things in life. You have to be able to go on holidays. You have to do all those things. So if you need to make life changes, I'd much rather live in a smaller house and have a much nicer life than be living in a big, big house that I'm struggling to pay for. So balance it up and be able to have the nice things.
And educate yourself on where you can save money and,
that's it.
Make some cuts and put some money in your bank and all that kind of stuff. Your matchmaker, if people are listening and they're trying to find a lover, where do they go?
Love HQ Matchmaking. I also have a podcast called Tough Love. You had Stephanie on a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
So give us a listen.
Thank you so much.
A pleasure as always, Jen.